and welcome to Joyful Homemaking. Ashley and I are excited to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for your engagement on our Instagram, which is at Joyful Homemaking Podcast. If you like to kind of see a little bit behind the scenes or hear kind of what our thoughts are, or maybe if you have something that is on your heart you want us to talk about, please message us there. We'd love to do it. Also, you can find us on YouTube or anywhere that you listen to podcasts, and we would just be so grateful if you wanted to leave a review or give us like one of those thumbs up. It's not for our benefit. It's so funny to say that in the beginning of a podcast, but it's not for our benefit. It is to get the message out there to more homemakers, wives, and we just want to encourage. We just want that to be our heart, and hopefully it is an encouragement to you. So today's conversation is unique. However, I feel like I say that all the time because it's so unique to me that I'm like, are people talking about this because they should be? And then I asked Ashley, and she's like, oh, I'm talking about that right now with some other people. So I'm really excited and a little nervous in that a lot of people hear what you say, but not what you don't say. And I don't want to be someone that has to give qualifiers all the time or to defend, I guess, maybe a comment because it was taken out of context. And so I just hope that as you've been listening to this podcast, getting to know Ashley and I in our hearts, that you know that this is not a condemnation podcast, but actually in an encouragement to find the convictions that you want to live out in your life podcast. So, Ashley, are you ready for today's podcast?
Yes, absolutely. And I love that we're not coming at it with disclaimers, but we have a couple disclaimers because I would also add just that obviously we do not believe women are preachers. We are here, like you said, to encourage. And anything that we say that might feel like maybe it's kind of tugging at your heart a little bit, something you want to pray about, something that the Holy Spirit is nudging you about, like, go talk to your husband about that. We're not here to tell you what to do, how you ought to be thinking. We are just hoping to share our own things that have encouraged us in our lives, the way the Lord has worked in our lives, and hopefully, to get you thinking in a way that will maybe start those conversations with your husband, and help you just pray and work through the things of, momming and wifing and being a Christian woman, right? So, yeah.
Yes, and amen. So, podcast kind of going to start with a little bit of story, but the goal of today's podcast is to really process through church, your role in church, or church that you attend, the church that you want your children to attend one day. It's to kind of process through how you come about making decisions, your journey to finding a way to make sure that you are in alignment with your convictions when it comes to church. Ultimately, as Ashley said, we are wives and in submission to our husbands. We use this as a conversation launching point, not as a dictating what we are going to do launching point. Enjoy our conversation today. Take part in it. Talk to your husband about it. If you're not married, talk to your dad or an elder about it. And hopefully this will be fruitful. So when we moved, we left Oregon and we were at a church with Ashley. Actually, we were together. I wish we could say that we were together forever, but we will be in eternity. So that's what counts. Church together. And when we left, Darren and I had done a lot of praying and talking about what we were going to look for in a future church. It was our first time really kind of experiencing going out there and to find a church. Some people use the word church shopping, which I'm like rant about that word just because it just feels very consumer oriented. And if you really look at the biblical mandate for community, biblical community and church, it's nothing to do with you and everything to do with edifying the church and the body and building them up. Just with life in general, right? We can really take an egocentric, selfish look at things. We were in the journey of finding the church. And there was many things, many conversations and like tiers, if you will. Like this is our top tier, has to be this way. This is our second tier. What really should be our preferences over others. And then our third tier, like it would be nice if this was it. To tell you that we have not found a church that matches our whole list, right? I mean, I think that that's good. I think it helps you grow, right? It helps you refine your convictions. It helps you be that iron sharpening iron with other believers as you are working out that with others. But today's podcast, we're going to kind of chat a little bit about as a wife, as a mom, what are some of the things that we should have our attentions on when we are looking for a church or when we are attending a church or when we are trying to teach our children about church in general? Could this podcast be like a 10-hour sermon from a pastor? Yes. But we are just grabbing your coffee, chatting about it. So hear what we say, not what we don't say, and enjoy. So Ashley, you want to kick us off a little bit?
Sure. Okay. Oh, so many thoughts. So I think just from our own personal experience, we sort of in our adult married parenting life after we moved from college, got a job, had, started having kids, there really have only been two churches that I would actually have put us that like we were at. And one of them was 7.5, 8 years. Great church. It was a great one for a lot of reasons, but I think we learned a lot. And one of those things that we learned is that you have to know what your convictions are, just like you and Darren talking about like the tiers. Okay, what is the first thing? Like, what does that church have to agree with? And then what would be really great if they agreed with, and then what are the things that we would love if they agreed with, but if they don't, like it's okay and we could still fellowship with them and sit, as our pastor says, sit joyfully under the teaching there. And I think one of the things we learned from going to what is a fairly large non-denominational church in our area is that because there was not a specific denomination, there was a lot of things that weren't specifically spelled out in sort of like what they believe, their statement of beliefs or, whatever it was the church had. And so I think that's just something to be cautious of, because that is a place, if your church, well, just like you said, like, hear the things we say and not the things we don't say. Well, if they're not saying something, then you don't actually know that you don't know where they stand on that. And they're trying to, they're non-denominational because they want lots of people that maybe have that second tier, third tier, those issues that they're okay. Like they want people to come in that maybe would disagree on those things, but that's okay because there's no real stance. And the problem with that, of course, is that then if you are in the congregation and suddenly they roll out a female pastor, for example, which I have known that happening to many people in the area at different large churches in our area that are non-denominational, or some of them that have a denomination but don't specifically, their denomination doesn't specifically have outlined what they believe about women pastors in air quotes. But like, so and then they suddenly do that. Well, now you've been at a church for most of a decade. You are committed there. You're serving there. You have good friends there. I mean, so many. And then what do you do? So it's just so important to figure out what your church believes about these things, to be in alignment with your husband, to know what you believe about them from the Bible, and then to teach them to your children. Because I think another major problem, say that happens and you're like, well, we're already so invested in this church, like we're, whatever role you may be playing, and all of our friends are here, all of our kids' friends are here, they're so involved in the youth group, whatever it might be. But then what are you teaching your children if you're like, well, we don't agree with this really important issue, but we're still going to stay here? Now, I will say our current church, we do have disagreements. And I would say they are sort of that like third tier, third level disagreements. Or I don't even know if disagreement is the right word. Well, yeah, because we're not in agreement on certain things. So, and we're not the only one. And I know that because our pastor has said from the teaching, a spot of teaching, this is what I believe. I know that not all of you do, and so, and he and I have had conversations. I've had conversations with the elder. It's very out in the open. It's not like a secret that I don't agree with certain things. But again, third tier issues. And they're also things that we have talked to our kids about. And that's just, I feel like that's another spot where you can teach your kids, okay, so is this a gospel issue or not? Is this something that's stated very clearly in the Bible or not? Is this something, and it also teaches your kids to figure out their own convictions, to pray about it, to look into the word, to figure out where they stand on it. And I think that is really important. And of course, you may not even agree with your own husband on some of these third tier issues, but I think it's so important to have those conversations, figure out where he's coming from, and whether or not you agree to follow his leadership on them, right? So say, okay, this is just an example, guys, but say that you feel you want to get your baby baptized. You think paedobaptism is the way. And your husband's like, no, I want them to be able to speak a confession of faith to me, to their pastors and elders before they're baptized. You're going with your husband on that. Like, he's the lead. He's the head of your household. And I wouldn't put that as a first tier issue. I don't know. Maybe some people would, but I would not. So I just think it's important to remember to go with your husband's leadership role as the head of the household, and also to support him in whatever he might be doing within the church too, I think is really important, because it can also become, I think it's really easy for both of you to get into different serving roles and to not realize that you are actually still his helpmeet, and whatever his serving role is, it's still your responsibility to help him with that and to have your children see that too. So anyway, I feel like I maybe said a lot of disconnected things there, but yeah, I don't know. Thoughts initially on any of those specific things?
I love it. I really liked your encouragement to wives to remember that where your husband is serving or leading in the church is where you get the opportunity to be an encouragement and a helpmate. And because we do, we're like, oh, well, that's his thing, or this is my thing. But really, you're breaking the unity of your family and bring your children along with his thing. You know, we have a tendency in our society now where women are quick to serve, much quicker than the men are in generalities, right? And so if I think about that, just even from a logical standpoint, not even a spiritual, but obviously they connect together, that the encouragement of my role is what is actually building the church through my husband. And I know that sounds so funny because we all are equal in value. We're all equal in value. We don't have to have a husband to get us to heaven like other religions. We don't get to a different status in heaven because of our husband. No, no, no. But this role that we have been given allows us to do kingdom work. And when we know that when a team is united and working together, it is much stronger and than one individual, right? And so good. I really like that you encourage that. I do think when we think about tiers, for tier one, I would for sure say the five solas,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like are what all Christians should stand behind and believe in and be teaching from if they call themselves a true, evangelical Christian. That is like there's no exception to that rule in my mind. There are, though, in my mind, additional tier one guidelines or expectations that Darren and I have for our family that we were not willing to compromise on. I feel like tier two and tier three, you can compromise. Like you can find unity and still not break convictions. There, you brought up female pastors, and I know I know that that's a hot topic. I know a lot of people because of the denomination I grew up in, because the people I've even met in this area, a lot of female leaders.
Hmm.
And I would say, and I tell my kids, I am not arguing their salvation.
No.
You know, that is not on the table to even discuss. You know, that they say they're saved, they believe in Jesus Christ, they follow the five solas.
Hmm.
That's okay. But we all have to find things through our progressive sanctification, through the Holy Spirit who is convicting us and leading us, that we have to, if we don't stand for something, then we'll fall for anything. And I think that that is kind of transpiring in our culture today. So regardless of what I believe they're saved, I believe they're wonderful people. Women or the churches that they attend have saved people, people in my own family. But I have seen with my eyes the trajectory of when we put that as a priority of a female pastor or female leaders, even when we put that in place, it has a tendency, a strong tendency to lead to feminism, to lead to pridefulness, to lead to broken families, to lead to um, the lack of leadership in families and in churches from the men. And okay, that is a whole podcast. I'm not going to like dive too deep into that, but just something to ponder and to pray about and talk to your husband about. One thing that goes with that, though, that I want to just kind of hit home, because it really hits home in all areas, is what a church wins you to, or what a church brings you in with, is what they have to keep you with. So let's say that church brought you in because of expository teaching and the five solas, and they brought you in without expectations of entertainment. That's what you came to church with. That is the standard then that they get to uphold. The church I'm talking about.
Hmm.
But let's say the church brings you in with trendy music, a coffee bar, topical sermons that sound like TED Talks and tickle your ears, like that's what they have to keep doing in order to keep you coming, because that is the expectation or standard that they laid out. I love music. I am on the worship team at our church under my husband. We get to do it together. It's so fun. Do I love some new worship music? Absolutely. But can that be my tier one? No, it can't be, because then that is what I would be bringing people, bringing my family, bringing other people in with, is trendy music or lights or fog machines or whatever. It's just that mindset, and you know what? It comes back to parenting. It comes back to parenting too, because if you bribe your children, if you're good, I'm gonna give you this lollipop. Sooner or later there is going to be a better bribe that doesn't
Hmm.
come from you. And they're gonna want, they're gonna want that thing, not what you have promised them. And it's the same with faith and growing our families in the church. We need to inundate them with the truth of the gospel and basically nothing else, right? Like nothing else should compare to the message that's being spoken over your kids from the pulpit, from your husband in your own house. Nothing should compare or be more fun, right? More fun than that. Aaron, just at the table, I'll finish with the story so that I want to hear your thoughts. Just ask the kids. I think it was like 2 days ago. Dinner. He said, "What's your favorite thing about church?" He doesn't know we're doing this podcast, by the way. I mean, like we talk about it, but he doesn't know that's what we're talking about. And I was like, "Tell me more." But you know, we talked, and like the things I was ready for shocked me that didn't come up. Like I was ready for, I like to see my friends, and I like the music, or I like that, and and they said comments about the sermons, about truth being spoken, they use words like unity of the church. And I was like, are they just repeating what we're saying? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what the message is, But, um, and then side note bar, Ashley, I don't know if I've told you, but Darren is writing a book right now. Did I tell you? No, I know.
In his spare time.
It is spare time. No, that's just a book, spare time being laid off. So it works.
Oh
It
my
works.
goodness.
But it's going to be a short book, but it's about the importance of children in church.
Awesome.
That they are a pivotal member of the body, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm so for it. But that just reminds me too, like when you're doing your tiers, like is this a church that views my children as members? Like maybe they're not like on the membership, right? Until you're 18, but do they view them as such a significant part of this church, or are they should be seen and not heard? Kind of like that older mindset. So, okay, I blab, you blab.
Yeah, no, I think that that's so important. And I think that's one thing that we did love about, well, it's a little complicated because of course we had our church that we were going to, and then our church did a church plant, and we're part of the church plant, but I still consider it sort of all one church in a way. When I talk about our church, I just feel like I'm talking about both of them. But anyhow, but I loved that it was not uncommon to see children in service. In the summer, there's not Sunday school, so all the kids are in service. Like it was you weren't like side-eyed if you brought your kids in, because I have kids that just didn't want to go to Sunday school or they wanted to be in the service. And then of course our church plant only has Sunday school through third grade, and that's only and then one Sunday we're all in together. Holidays we're all in together, so I love that, and that is a huge priority, is that the children are considered part of the church and not just like these little people we bring to church that need to be entertained while we sit in like the real church sort of. So yeah, I think, and I think I don't know. I think in one of the polos we were sending back and forth, I was telling you that like I grew up going to a church where they literally had a separate building for the high school. Like I don't think I ever went so when I became a Christian in high school, that was where my friends went. And so I started going to this church where like we went in a completely separate building. Like it was just like high schoolers and like a few adults that were like the pastors, I guess, of just the high schoolers. I don't know if they also went to the other church. It was super bizarre now that I think back on it. Like that is not a model that I agree with. And again, does that mean that the people were unsaved? No, it does not mean they were unsaved. In fact, there were some really great, pastors that were there and adults that were there to help mentor us. But is that something that I would want for my family? No, absolutely not. Like that is definitely goes against my convictions and against the things that we would teach our children. And so that's like that would be a top priority for me. And I don't think, again, it's not a salvation issue, so I don't even know if you could put it under like a first tier. But if we were to look for, or if we were to go to a new church, it would definitely be, and they had a separate building for high schoolers, we would never consider it. So anyhow, but I think it's an interesting topic. Yeah. And I also hate the church shopping topic, even though it really does feel like that sometimes when you're looking for a church. And when we were trying to find a church before, it was a very weird time for a lot of different reasons. And then of course we finally settled on one, and then COVID happened, and then there was no church. Like they just stopped meeting. So anyway, which of course is not even a podcast that we want to get into, but anyhow, but looking at the different churches that we went to, and it was a wide range, and it was a tricky time. I think we probably went to maybe like 5 different churches trying to find like what church we felt like. And I think it's really important to not just think like, okay, so if it doesn't align with your convictions. You're not going to go to it and be like, how can I change this church to align to my convictions? Like, of course not. That is not a good mentality. But when you have those convictions and you find a church that does align with at least, like we were talking about, at least most of them, then I think it is really important to ask yourself, like, okay, how can I serve this church also? To go into it, not just thinking, I was listening to something once, and it was a gal that I don't listen to her on theological issues. I listen to her because she's like a homesteader, but sometimes she gets into deeper things and I'm like, just stop, just stop. Like, I can't handle it. And she was talking about how they stopped going to church because it wasn't serving them. There's nothing that like makes me pricklier more than that statement. Like, church wasn't serving me. I'm like, so you don't know what church is, it sounds like. It is a body. We work together and serve one another. Like, that is how church works. And so I think it is really important, to think about. Even our pastor was talking about this past Sunday, but like, everybody's been given giftings from God, right? And like, even if you don't think so, like, God calls you to something, right? And that can be just being willing to be a worker, being willing to fill in where you're needed, to make coffee and put out cups, to, whatever it might be there. And again, disclaimer, you don't have to have coffee, but that's just, I feel like in a lot of churches, they at least have the church coffee. The Folgers is out there. Although I wouldn't be opposed to a coffee bar in our church, but it's probably not going to happen. Anyhow, so I think that it's really important to, when you go into a church, to think like, how has God gifted me that I could serve in this church? And not that you're going to like elbow your way in and start trying to like be in a leadership position, but like you need to think about how you can serve the church, and not just go into a church thinking, is this going to serve what my needs are? And that, okay, again, disclaimer, that is a blanket statement. I also know people who have told me before, we were in a really broken, hard time. Our family, when we joined whatever church it might be, we just kind of had to sit in the back and just let the teaching fill us, so I'm not saying that as soon as you get into a church, you better start rolling up your sleeves and working. But if you are a normal Christian family in just a normal season of life, you better roll up your sleeves and start working. Like, that's what we're called to do in the church. So I think that's just another important thing to think about if you're looking for a church, or if you're part of a church and you're not serving yet. Like, what are you being called to do? So yeah, okay, let's talk really quickly. Well, maybe I'll say it, and then if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. But I think, we talk a little bit about joining a church. What about leaving a church?
So hard.
It's so hard. Yeah.
I know.
Go ahead. Sorry. No,
Darren and I had a hard time. My dad was the pastor of the church, and it was during COVID, and there were some things we didn't align with, and so we decided we were going to leave. And it is so hard to leave a church well. It is so hard. You bond and you connect with these people. Like, people have referred to it as a divorce before. Like, you're divorcing from these people, and I think it's particularly hard too when you are in leadership, and you are leading people, because when you leave a church, yes, we're also the body of Christ. And yes, we're still going to be friends, but there is some sort of like separation, like, you are leaving that body, that community with all the love, right? With all the love, but you are having to join another one, and you need to like wholeheartedly pour into that new one, meeting the members, serving that community. You can't be divided. It's like divided. It's like trying to serve two masters when you're part of multiple churches. And so that like cutting and grafting it to the next church is so challenging, and it hurts. It's a bittersweet, like if people leave your church, right? It's hard when they leave a church to go to another church in town. Hopefully us leaving Oregon and then moving to another, state, hopefully was a little easier this last time. But you still miss the people. You love the people. I don't know. My only wisdom in leaving a church is to be upfront about why you're leaving. You know, you should have had conversations and conversations with the leadership if you're leaving over a biblical matter. And I don't know why else you would leave other than a biblical matter, like if your convictions, if it's not aligning with your family's convictions, and so then you need to go find another body that is, then you should have had that conversation with the elders, with the pastor. They should know. And then when you say it's time to go, they should not be surprised, right? And when you do that, I feel like you can leave on good terms. I mean, still pain, hopefully not too much, but still, because you love the people. But it's not manipulative. You're not taking people with you. You're not trying to divide the church. You're not trying to get at the pastor or whatever, make them change their convictions. You're just saying this doesn't align with our family anymore. I don't know if I said that well, Ashley, but it's hard.
No, I think, yeah, no, I think you said it exactly perfectly. And that's what you just said was what I was thinking of the whole time. Just that's why it's so important to have those strong convictions. I mean, we have walked with family and friends just in the last few years who have left churches that they have been at basically, their entire kids' childhood, they're anyway. And both times it was, they drew a line in the sand and they said, we cannot go further than this. And the church kept pushing, having guest speakers that they didn't love, saying, doing different things. And they're like, okay. And they would talk to the leadership, talk to the elders. We don't agree with this. And then they would push. And then they went over that line. And finally it's like, okay, we told you our convictions. We knew our convictions. The Lord gave us these convictions and you've crossed the line and you can't, there's no going back at that point. And so, we've seen it done just really well by a lot of people, honestly, because I don't think it's a secret that there's been a huge reshuffling in the last few years of churches, not even necessarily due to COVID, but due to, I don't know, all sorts of different issues that have sprung up, whether or not people agree with the female pastors, this and that. And so I've just seen it done really well where there was a disagreement, but it was still done really well where they said, this is the line we drew, you crossed it, and so we have to leave. And I also think on the flip side, if people are leaving a church, but they don't have like a biblical conviction of why they're leaving, then it is much more of like they have better coffee across town, or like all of our friends are going over here, or which actually worked out well in our favor because all of our friends actually went to the church that we aligned with, and we realized we didn't in fact align with the one that we had been going to because of decisions that were being made. But anyway, and then more people followed too and ended up going. So so that was a huge blessing. But I mean, that's what happens, right? If you have a church that is aligning with biblical principles, that is doing good expository teaching from the word without nuance, like those, that will attract believers. People will start coming to there and realizing that their convictions are that they need that sort of teaching needs to be done. But anyway, I think, so people can leave churches even though they don't have a strong conviction. And also sometimes people can have strong convictions and have a really hard time leaving churches. It's hard when all of your relationships were there and you've become so committed and you, like you said, you're in like some sort of leadership role and you're serving but if the conviction's there, then you have to do the hard thing. So, and how much does that teach your children too about strong convictions? It's so important.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think that my final thought would be, when it comes to the sermon and when it comes to like comments like, well, it just wasn't feeding me or I wasn't getting anything from it, I think that those comments need a better heart check than just saying it, because those comments in my mind can lead in two different trajectories. One, you're not getting anything from it because maybe it's not biblically based. Like maybe you're not connecting with it because it's not from the word of God. Like, is that why this message isn't working? Or Are you not connecting with it because it's not entertaining enough for you?
Mm-hmm.
Or aren't, it's too dry or it's too boring or whatever. Like that, you might want to be like, you know, maybe it is biblically based, but you have this persona or perspective that you should be entertained when someone's speaking to you. And then that's a heart check. You'd be like, am I coming to church to be entertained? Like, it's just something you got to ask yourself, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's some people that say, like, well, I'm not being fed, that are maybe in a spiritually dry place because they're not engaging in the Word of God outside of Sunday. And that is also a heart check. So I'm not saying what you are. I'm not saying, you can be all of them in different seasons, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I say that to myself or when I say that out loud, what do I mean by that?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. And I think as much as I said we can stay in a church that doesn't align with our convictions because of relationships, I think we also can leave churches because of relationships. And yeah, I've seen that happen too, where people are not happy with how I don't know, they feel that people should be treating them differently, or they don't like something. There was a break in fellowships. Gosh, there was a break in fellowship somewhere with someone, and then they leave with broken fellowship. And so I think it's also really important just to remember, yes, we are there to fellowship. And if there's a problem with that, like if you truly cannot figure it out, then you need to get an elder involved in that
Yeah.
and make sure that is, that you're living as much at peace with one another as you can, and that there's forgiveness and restoration, because if not, that can cause huge problems. And it's not a reason to leave a church. Oh dear, you've gone.
Sorry.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you're
My
back. Anyway, but I think it's also a really good point. Like if people are having a problem, yeah, well, like the sermon's just, they're not exciting enough. I'm not really tracking with the sermon. Well, are you thinking about your neighbor's outfit instead of the sermon? Like, I don't know. I take notes during a sermon because my mind is he'll say something and it'll get my mind wandering off to another place. And I have to, it's like when you have driving directions and you have to keep pressing recenter. But if I take notes during the sermon, then I can stay focused. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know who needs to hear this, but take notes during the sermon if you can't pay attention. But then my son, James says, I can't take notes. He goes, it totally distracts me to try to take notes. I have to just sit and listen and have my Bible. So it's, totally individual. Anyhow, okay. What is, I see, okay, wait, let's see your sweatshirt real quick. Do a quick. Cute. Okay, wait, and then, oh, so fun. I love it. Okay, does it come in other colors?
Yeah, blue and tan, and there was a pink color, but I think she's out of the pink. So just blue and tan right now, I think are the two.
Fun. Okay, super cute. Is it unisex sizing or is it?
So order down. I think it's love the, like big and cozy. But I would order a size down.
Super cute. Fun. Okay, well, good. So that's happening. What else is happening with you? What else you cooking up besides sweatshirts?
Well, in the morning, the kids and I, all 7 children and myself, are driving to Oregon. And we are going to split, it's an 11-hour drive, and we're going to split it into 2 days on the way there and 2 days on the way back. Because if Darren was with me, I would just do it all in one. Like, just get there, see the people. But I'm just a little concerned about 7 kids and myself, and I've never done it before solo. So this episode will come out after I've arrived, but send some prayers up for the drive home.
Mm-hmm.
It will be good. I am really excited to see people and to see family. Um, it, I don't know. With the whole layoff thing, it's so good. I mean, he needs to be home so that if he's able to pick up any hours at the hospital, he can. But it is just like a trickle effect, right? Like there's lots of things that happen when a big change happens, and to stay joyful in it and to stay, with the promise of dependence on the Lord, because If you do anything else, you're gonna be miserable. So it will be good. It'll be an adventure, and we'll see how
Mhm.
it goes.
Wait,
What's
where are
cooking?
you staying? Where are you staying the first night?
We're staying in LeGrand, so we're doing the longest drive first. It's like 7.5 hours the first day, and then we'll make it to Oregon. I mean, to like specifically my parents, in like 3 hours on Saturday, so we can have most of Saturday with them. And then when we drive back, we're stopping in Boise, so it's a shorter and more like halfway,
Yeah.
but still longer day and shorter the second day.
Do you have people you know in LeGrand and Boise?
Um, I no, no, not in LeGrand, Boise, but we're renting like Airbnb for the night because hotels are more expensive to rent for our size of family and the kitchen where you can't like make food and so that's hard. And then when we're in Boise, we're gonna try to go to the Boise Zoo because our Oregon trip lets you go to the Boise Zoo for free. So we'll see if that can be a little like stretchy wiggles in the morning and then go all the way back to Southeast Idaho.
Oh my goodness.
Man. And then try to up like how it's going on my Instagram at RaisingRices. I have some strategic ideas about how to make a car ride go smoothly, so we'll see if those are successful or not.
Of course you do. Yeah, that's awesome.
How about you? What's cooking at your house?
Well, one thing that's just been making me think this week. There's lots of things that make me think, but I mean, as you know, like a dork, I threw out my back Tuesday morning. And it's fine. It's not, I'm like, I've dealt with nerve pain. I've dealt with muscle spasms. It's not either of those. Praise the Lord. It's just a good old back. It got wrenched and thrown out, and it was from worked out the night before, did my exercises in the morning, did all my chores, like hop into the pig pen, cleaning out the chicken coop, everything. Went inside, went to make breakfast, reached under the counter, threw my back out. Apparently, this is the age we are now, like where we do these things. So anyhow, so that happened. But yeah, I just have been thinking how much what you train your children in during the times when it doesn't have to be done is like what they learn or what they're gonna do when it does have to be done, right? So I'm like, hey, people, listen up. My back is out. Like, you're just gonna need to do more. You need to empty the dishwasher now. You need to fill the dishwasher now. You need to do, can you pick that up for me? Can you know, like all of the things. And it's not like everybody's like, woohoo, we have so many extra chores, but no one is complaining and they all know how to do it and they are all capable at it. Like they can do all of the things, even if mom is sitting on the couch for the day. And so, which I haven't been completely sitting on the couch every day because life is still happening. But for the most part, it's like I had to just keep sitting down the last couple days. And yeah, anyway, it just made me think how much it's so important to train up your kids and not wait until it's not an emergency, but not wait until there's like some sort of circumstance in which you absolutely cannot. And then you're like trying to tell them how to do something or trying to say, hey, you need to come you have to do it with a good attitude. I need you, whatever it might be. It's just a good reminder for me. So anyway, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Thankful for helpful kids. And my husband, Lane, did all my dishes last night, which was a blessing. Dishes are just the worst when your back is out. I mean, there's like almost no way. It's so anyway, but yeah, it's getting better every day. It'll be fine. We have sunshine coming up, I think tomorrow and Saturday we're supposed to get some sunshine. So I'm planning on being recovered by the time sunshine gets here. That's my plan.
That's a good plan.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Thanks. Yeah. Anyhow, so yeah. Okay, well, I guess we've gone on and on, so it's probably time to go. But thanks so much.
Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, sounds good.